What's going on, guys? My name is Zach7365, and you can just call me Zach. Coming back at you with part 2 of the Speedroid 101 series. Roadmap for this one's looking like a quick deck profile to start it off, followed by at least 4 test hands, 2 of them being uninterrupted and talking through my thought process as I play the hand out. And then we're also going to be playing 2 against potential interruptions like Nibiru, Imperm, Valor, Ash. We'll roll a die to determine what we're facing up against on those 2. And then I do want to go over a couple matchups and how we're going to play through their board, and also what the best course of action is for us to set up against them as well. This will include main deck, side deck techs that we can possibly side in, games 2 and 3, and everything like that. We'll also go over how to potentially build your side deck, identifying some cards that we have access to that are generic and niche, such as like Gravity Collapse, Goes and Match, stuff like that. Those are the 2 cards that pop up in my head that really makes the most sense in the deck. But yeah, with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the deck profile real quick. Alrighty, and starting off, we have, of course, Terratop, 3 Hound, 3 Marble, and 3 Speedroid Wheel. These are your 10 starters for the deck. Basically get your engine rolling, get you into everything else you need to do. You have 3 Tack for your extender, and you have Turbo. 2 Turbo feels alright. I don't miss the 3rd. 2 Duke. And then 1 Plane, 1 Dice for combo, 1 Piper, just because of the utility and being able to draw cards. And then the last 2 is a Primitive Butterfly and a Tether Wolf. Both of these giving you pretty much free Baron access. Worst case scenario, this also takes care of a bunch of other things. By popping a token, you can increase its attack, do some damage with that as well. Pretty cool. And then we play 3 copies of Speed Recovery and 2 copies of Speedroid Duplicate to round off the Speedroid names. Onto the hand traps, we have 3 copies of Droll and Lockbird in the main, 3 Valor, 2 Ash, 2 Nib, and 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence. So 12 hand traps. Onto the extra deck, we play the 1 Baron, 1 Shinshin, 1 Kite Drake, 2 copies of Crystal Wing, 1 Wind Pegasus, 1 Charge Warrior, 1 Juju, 1 Chambara, 1 Hagoida, 2 copies of Cork Blaster, 2 copies of Rubber Band Shooter, and then Aurora Dawn. So moving on to the side deck, I really enjoyed this, surprisingly, because I'm usually against Gamma, but the Cypher Aim Gear Gamma package, 3 copies of Lightning Storm, 3 Cosmic Cyclones, 3 Judgments, and 2 copies of Gozen to round off the side. Alrighty, and that basically sums up the deck profile. A lot of you probably are wondering why some things weren't in there, like the double yo-yo, win, small world, scratch, anything like that. And I think Winter Kills and Aerosol have the right mindset where this deck just hard loses to a Droll. And I mean, yeah, you can resolve win, search Terratop, but then they Droll you, and then what do you do with the Terratop? Your hand also has to have some other type of starters or a plan B, such as an Ultra Hound to get you going. For double yo-yo, there's a lot of times where you just see it and it just does nothing for you. It's kind of a win more type of card. It's very nice to reveal a 7 off of the Rubber Band Shooter and then have access to Terratop immediately. So that is a plan. And that's usually what the yo-yo is good for, or adding it back off of the speed recovery on the following turn. That way you can make Chambara or something like that and instantly kill your opponent. Overall, in the testing that I've done, like, I've really enjoyed this build. Like, I've played several games against the Bird deck, the Dark Magician deck, which, yeah. Couple other things like Live Twins and everything like that. I mean, it performed really well for surprisingly. Like, I enjoyed it. I really didn't miss the double yo-yo, to be completely honest with you. And yeah, I did have the Wind Pegasus out of the deck at one point for the Rap type, but Rap type just doesn't do enough. I'd rather have the 7, because usually if you have just Terratop access, you can make the Wind Pegasus and the Cork Blaster, and that gives you a Omni Negate with the Baron and also the bounce back with the Wind Pegasus if they out your Baron or anything else on your board. So that was the mindset there. Double Crystal Wing is nice. I've tinkered with playing the Rider instead of the second Crystal Wing. It was alright. I thought about maybe like Hama the Conquering Bow, but I feel like that's just win more. So, yeah, I think Double Crystal Wing's fine because you can still make that pretty easily in Roids. And I found out that Auroradon, I mean, as good as it is, this is plan B. This is not your main course of action. And I do 100% agree with that. Like, you should not be going straight for Auroradon whenever you are going uninterrupted. If you really want to secure that extra duplicate add back from the Auroradon itself. And you have plenty of bodies to get other things on board, like the Baron and the Shen and everything else. So, yep, that's about it for the deck profile. I hope that kind of gives you an insight quickly. But yeah, that's what we are working with in these test hands, so let's go ahead and get into it. Alrighty, so getting into the first test hand, we're just going to give it a quick power shuffle since we just got out of the deck profile section. Here I just want to kind of talk a little bit about the deck, maybe just like what the plan is for the future of the channel. So I have been kind of busy here lately, and I do really enjoy making videos. I really need to get on the ball with this whole YouTube thing. So I do want to try to at least post a video a day. I need some ideas from you guys though. Honestly, this type of video in the 101 series really kind of stemmed from all the comments I've gotten over the past couple months and just collectively from different videos and different profiles and everything like that. So if there's anything you want to see, like I've even thought about possibly doing some other decks. Like I'm currently tinkering with like a Magnet Warrior Adamantipator list that's kind of fun, not gonna lie. But yeah, let me know what you want to see down below because I need to do something with the channel. I do enjoy making videos. It's just I don't know what else to do with Roids at this point, to be completely honest with you. But alrighty, let's go ahead, give this a couple more shuffles. And just to show that this is all one take, that way there's no clip and like people saying, oh, you stacked the deck or something like that. Alright, so, opening hand, we have 2 Ash, Valor, and a Takaton board. So we're going to do 2 test hands uninterrupted. So we're going to start with a roll wheel. We're going to pitch one of these Ash Blossoms because we don't need 2. And then we will grab a dice, roll it. We got a 2 from that, so we'll grab a... grab a marble machine. Now I do have a couple options here. We can special this and use its effect to bring out something, or we can just normal summon this, still use its effect to tribute itself and bring out a tuner, and then go into our rubber band shooter and do some plays that way as well, which I kind of like that idea the most. So yeah, let's go normal summon tack, and attack effect, bring out Duke. Then we will link these 2 off for a copy of Rubber Band Shooter. And then we will use his effect to banish a 6 for cost. Depending on the matchup, I usually go like going for Beast or for the Juju just because the Charge Warrior draw can be really nice. And we will reveal a Terratop along with a copy of Ultra Hound. And then we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Is that on camera? We'll re-roll it, make sure it's on camera. 5. So we'll get the Terratop to hand. We'll send the Ultra Hound to grave. Effect for extra normal summon. We'll grab this, use its effect. We will grab us a copy of Takaton board. Special attack effects. Two red-eye die. Then effective red-eye dice, make this a 2. Little synchro. And then effective shooter. Revive these 2. And then effect, we'll make this a level 6 potentially, or 4. So right here we do have a couple options. We can get Hagoida access here because we weren't able to earlier. We do have the Duke engraved to bring back another card, so that's always an option as well. We can end on double crystaling here, or we can... Depends on how much you value more. You do have these 2 hand traps in hand. You have plenty of stuff in graveyard. Getting Hagoida access right here would be really good. I think right here the best option would be to make that a 4. Go for the Hagoida. And then synchro these into your first Crystal Wing. And then effect of Duke. Bring back the shooter. Hagoida effect, summon back. And then synchro these off for Crystal Wing number 2. I tend to keep these in certain zones because the middle zone I've lost to the relinquished anima Link 1 plenty of times. Also, middle zone and this zone is safe if you have a Link monster here because of the Geo Transnator. I know no one's really playing that anymore, but it's just one of those things where if you lose 2 at once, you learn, just like if people playing around Mech Knights. But yeah, so this provides you double Crystal Wing, 2 hand traps, so 4 interruptions. Going into the next turn, let's just cut that, say, let me draw. It's an Imperm. So, this was probably engraved because they'll run that over at least. These will be engraved as well because we burned them. So you can use Duke effect, shuffle back the Takaton board, summon out Cork. Cork effect, or not Cork effect, but Goida. You can summon this back. And then you can either go for a Kite Drake here to negate everything if you need to, or you can take these 2 into your second Rubber Band Shooter. Then effect, we'll banish the 6 in this case to reveal a Takatomborg and a Car Turbo. Roll the dice. 1, we get the attack. Then you can special attack, use its effect. You have options here with Piper. Piper will give you a dig for another card, which is nice. Two, 3. So we do have an extra normal summon with this, but it really doesn't achieve us anything. We can get into something else. We can grab the Car Turbo still. We have Rubber Band Shooter live as well. But it does take us out of the Auroradon line of play. Auroradon will allow us to pop a card at least, which I do like. And then we can boost with the Car Turbo. We're boosting with Car Turbo anyway. So arguably this is probably the better choice if you know that you can kill this turn. If not, you'd probably grab that Veiler. But then you can go Rubber Band Shooter effect, normal summon, effect, add Car Turbo. Effect in hand, special, and then synchro for 5. Go Chambara. And then here you can do something cute where you can go Car Turbo effect, banish itself and the Terratop. And then go for Battle Phase, attack for a shit ton. And then main phase 2, if you didn't kill them, you can synchro these two off into a copy of Shinshin. And then Chambara effect, add back the Crystal Wing for the follow-up. And then main phase, you set that face down. So then you end on 2 negates, a Shinshin, and a infinite impermanence that you drew for turn. So that's how I'd play that out. I mean, ideally, that's how I would play it out. There's no telling exactly what they would get rid of. If they didn't attack over the rubber band shooter, at least, I mean, there was just so much free stuff that we could have done there that really didn't matter. But yeah, that's test hand number 1. Hope that gave you a little bit of insight about how I approach it. We'll go into another one, and then we'll do one against some hand traps. Alrighty, and we're doing a couple more shuffles real quick. We'll do a final cut, and then we will draw our top 5. Turbo. Alright, so this one is not that good for us going first. Going second, this is amazing. So really all we can do is we'll just actually just pass. Don't really need to do anything else. We'll probably nib them. I mean, we have 4 hand traps. We could possibly do something with that. I mean, worst case scenario, if we were going first, if we needed to make a play, I mean, we still have these in hand, so that's good. So you can normal summon the Droll. You can special this. Go into rubber band shooter. Shooter effect will banish a 6 for cost. The Juju. Hound and Terratop. Of course, they're at the bottom. Figures. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Landed on 2, but we're going to roll it back on the camera. 3. So Hound. Rubber band shooter effect, extra normal summon for Hound. Hound effect will dump a Alright, so we do have a couple options here. We can dump the duplicate, make this a cork blaster, and then we can go for the wheel. Or we can just add another copy of the gate as a guaranteed interruption. Where we already have these in hand, I really don't want to commit too much to the board, because especially with the nib. Yeah, I don't hate that actually. So we'll send the duplicate, use the duplicate effects, make this a level 2, and then synchro. For the cork shooter, and then cork shooter effects, we'll add a copy of duplicate to hand. And this will probably be the part where they roast you for playing a bad deck. At least that's what they do at my local game store because they love me. So we'll set 2. Imperm in the middle column usually. And then you'll have these. So, I mean, you don't care to activate nib at this point. You have the duplicate for a bounce. You have the imperm. You have a board wipe, and you have a Veiler. So, I mean, yeah, I think you're clearing out what they have to do. And then you draw into this for turn. Hound effect, shuffle back the card Turbo or the Terratop. Summon out something this, make the cork, or make the Kite Drake, and you might have something there. Or you could just go straight into your a second rubber band shooter, and then make your plays happen from there. So, yeah, there's plenty of options. So not too shabby. Not the best hand, but that's the best you could do in that situation. So yeah. Alright, since that one, the last one was kind of short, I do want to do just one more without any interruptions, just because that one was kind of and very dependent on the opponent doing something. But that is what you get for trying to main 12 hand traps. I might cut it down. But overall, high impact hand traps like that, it's really nice. And just the targeting negation that just avoids any chain blocking they may be doing is nice. I might cut the Ash Blossoms, to be completely honest with you. But yeah, we'll give this another cut. and then we will draw our top 5. Wow, that's great. So we can do some stuff here. So if we normal summon Marble Machine, effect will add a copy of Car Turbo, special to Car Turbo, and then we will link these two off. For the Rubber Band Shooter effects, we will banish a 6. For a copy of Top or Hound, and we'll roll and see what we get. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 3. Really wanted Hound in that situation, I'm not gonna lie. So we can normal summon Terratop. Terratop effects will add a copy of Takaton board. Special attack, and attack effect. Summon a dice effect. Make this a level 2. Synchro. Into Cork effect. Summon these back. Make this a 6. We'll synchro. Into the Wind Pegasus, and then a 7 and a 3. Into the Baron de Flor. We will set one card and pass it over. So they have to play through an Omni-Negate, a bounce, another bounce with the Wind Pegasus if they try to swing over or remove these. We have a Droll and Lockbird, a Veiler, and then worst case scenario, we have a Nibiru just to wipe the board and reset everything. Which then the top deck would be another Droll and Lockbird, which is not that great. But we do have the Hound and Graveyard as well. That'll be able to shuffle back something like the Takaton board or the Terratop, summon out a Cork Blaster, and then duplicate effect in Grave. We can make it our Rubber Band Shooter, and we can get into some plays there. So it's not too bad. But yeah. Alright, let's go ahead and shuffle this back up, and we're going to do a couple of test hands against some hand traps, or hypothetical hand traps. Alright, so getting into the next test hand, this one's going to be against some interruptions. I believe the first one will do 1 interruption. So we'll roll the dice to see what we get. So 1, 2, 3. We will assign a hand trap to it. So 1 will be Imperm Veiler. 2 will be Ash Blossom. 3 will be Nib. And then 4, 5, 6 will match 1, 2, 3. So let's shuffle this up. Give it a cut. Put it over here. And then roll dice. Got a 6. So we're playing through Nib. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, yeah, this will do it. So normal summon Tetherwolf. Tetherwolf effect. Make a token. Special Car Turbo. And then we'll synchro these off. Into Baron de Flor. That is 1, 2, 3, 4. That is the 4th summon, so that's all good there. Then we can go Speedroid Wheel, pitch this Nib that's in our hand. We got a 6. So we can grab Duke. And I kind of want to get the top here, to be honest. Now, if they activate the Nib just to burn the Baron Negate, then that's fine. We're all good there. So, Take the token that the Tether Wolf made plus the Duke, go into Shooter, and then Shooter effect, we will banish a... we already have a Hound in hand. We've already burned the card turbo, so we have Takatomborg left, and we have access to Marble still. So we'll go for a 5 to guarantee we get into the Takatomborg. So attack, and then Marble. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That is a 2 on this dice. So yeah. So that's the 3. That's a 2. Cool. So we'll get this to hand. That's fine. We do have a couple options. We can either normal summon this Ultra Hound and dump the red-eye die directly and then burn the tack, but I do like the idea of just having the tack for an extender later on. So we will normal summon the Marble Machine effect. We'll add a copy of the Takatomborg. We will special, use its effects, summon out the red-eye dice. Dice effect, make this level 2. Synchro for Cork. Cork effect, summon these back. And then Terratop effect to search. I'll add a copy of Piper. And red-eye die will make... we can make the Marble Machine a level 4, and then we'll synchro. Into the Hagoida, and then Hagoida and Cork Shooter into a Crystal Wing. Next we can use Duke Engrave, summon the Piper from hand, and then Piper effect. This will excavate 4. We'll add 1 to hand. One, 2, 3, 4. So we're definitely probably grabbing one of these. We already have a starter for next turn, so we don't need you. Ash is kind of low impact. The Imperm is nice. Duplicate does give us a extender of kinds next turn as well. Overall, I'd probably go for the negate here. The duplicate is nice, but we are going to be sending one to the grave with Ultra Hound next turn, and then we're going to be able to do some stuff with that. So I think that will be okay. So these 3 will go at the bottom. And then we'll activate Hagoida Engrave to special summon itself back. And then we'll synchro these off. Into Shinshin. Set 1. And pass it over there. So they're looking at a Monster Negate Destroy, a Shinshin Floodgate, so a Banish from field, and then we have a Floor as an Omni Negate that destroys. We have an Infinite Impermanence, and then we have plenty of follow-up and a starter for next turn as well. But yeah, that should basically cover that one. That is probably the best that you could do. There's probably other lines of play for other things, but I think that was the most optimal, at least in my mind. So, on to the next one. At least 1 to 2 more. Alrighty, and given this a couple more shuffles, we're going to go ahead and jump into the last test hand I want to put in this video. So, 1 more. There we go. Alright, roll the purple dice. 6. Yes. 4. They do not have 4-hand trap. 4. Where is this luck whenever I'm playing like actual games, bro? 3. They have 3 hand traps. What are they? Nib, Nib, Ash. So Nib and Ash. Okay. So we'll start with a Speedroid wheel. We will pitch the effect veiler for cost. So we'll pitch this. We'll let them ash that. That's fine. Arguably, you could have discarded this, but if you discard this and they let it go through, then you have some problems on your hand. But yeah, it's all right. So now we have to play through a nib. So go Ultra Hound effect. We will send a copy of Terratop. You'll use the speed recovery, target the Terratop, special attack, Terratop effect. Attack a Tomborg. So we are at 2 summons, 3, 4, 5. Yep, we're actually going to be okay here. Okay, then we'll special the Takatomborg, use his effect. Piper. See, the greedy play here would have been to bring out Duke and then go into Rubber Band Shooter. But you need to be able to respect the nib, I feel like, because it's being mained. Like, people are maining Dark Ruler no more, nib, Forbidden Droplets. Like, you need to respect potential board wipes going first in game 1. So we'll use the Piper effects. We're going to excavate 2. So here we can either grab a starter for next turn, which isn't a bad idea. But we do have the speed recovery engraved that's going to be able to add back the Terratop or the Ultra Hound. We have Ultra Hound engraved potentially as well because we can go into bring out a Cork Blaster and have a level 3 tuner. So I say we grab the Interruption. And then we'll synchro for 10 with these 3. Into a Baron to floor. And they can nib you here if they want to, just to burn the Baron negate, and then yeah. Standby phase, if you burn the Baron negate, you can always bring back the Terratop, search for other cards, grab you a starter if you need it. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So let's just say we set this, they go through their turn, we use the Baron negate, we have Imperm. Cool. We draw. Standby. They let this go through. Special back the Terratop, and then Terratop effect. We'll grab us a copy of Marble Machine. Now we have a couple options with this. We can go speed recovery, add back the Takatomborg just to make sure, but we're going to go ahead and burn this to force out any type of interruption they may have for us. So Marble Machine, it's good. Thinking about Tack or Car Turbo, because Tack would get us into Higoida, and then Car Turbo can get us into whatever else we need. So we don't have access to Car yet, so I'm going to grab the Car. Then we will use the effect of Speed Recovery, banish it to add back the Takatomborg. Special attack, effect, Duke, these 2, into Higoida, special, synchro, Crystal Wing, dog effect, shuffle back the attack, summon Cork, Pagoda, summon back. Now here you can be kind of greedy and go ahead and do the Piper, but I kind of want to hold on to that for later because we still haven't even used the effect of Cork Shooter whenever it's synchro summoned. So I kind of want to leave this on board for now just in case. So we'll link these two off for Rubber Band Shooter. Shooter effect. Juju. Juju might not even be the actual play here, but definitely Hound. And we'll grab Attack. We have a follow-up if we need it, or worst case scenario, we can normal summon Attack, get another tuner if we need that as well. But Hound is going to be able to dump us a duplicate, and we should be fine from there. Because we did normal summon the Marble Machine already. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6. Or 5. Yeah. So we'll go Duke effect, summon this. Make this level 2. We'll synchro. Into Cork. Cork effect. Add these back. So we can go this, target this, make it a 4. Synchro. For Chambara. Use the effect of Car Turbo, banish the Terra Top. And we're going to attack for game, basically. So 38, 18, 30, 32. Main phase 2, if they're not dead, you synchro these two off into another copy of Crystal Wing. And then Chambara effect will add the Terra Top back to your hand for the follow-up on the next turn. And yeah, that should pretty much do it. We happen to draw into the Draw Unlock Bird for turn on this one, so that's not too bad. But that's 2 monster negates. Yeah. Yep, that's not too bad. So that's kind of how I would approach it. Really, it just depends on what your opponent does. A lot of people, they don't even open up a hand trap. Some of them, they open up 4 or 5 hand traps. So that's happened with this deck since we're playing so many. But yeah, be mindful of people playing cards like Dark Ruler No More, Forbidden Droplets, Nibiru in the main, especially game 1, because it is coming. So just be prepared for that. That's where a deck like this really shines, because you're not dumping all of your eggs into one basket. You're adding back cards like the duplicates. You can search out duplicate if you need to. You got imperms as well. You got your hand traps. That's kind of like why this deck is the way that it is right now. Just because Dark Ruler No More Nib really doesn't do jack shit against like actual trap cards or hand traps. So, yep. Those are the test hands, guys. Let's go ahead and hop over to the next little section where we go over certain matchups and how we're going to be able to play into their boards and how to break them and what we need to be playing in order to play through their boards and everything else like that. So, off to the next one. Alrighty, so I hope you guys enjoyed the little test hand section. It was a little bit longer than I was expecting it to be, but I wanted to make sure that I actually shared my thought process and talked you through everything I was doing. That's usually how I approach the deck anyway. But yeah, I hope you learned something from it at least. But now we're going to head over to the side decking guide. This is going to include all the meta stuff, what each card will be doing against each matchup, what's best for us, and what works in our deck. So, let's get into it. Alrighty, so starting off with the card that we're maining, Draw Unlock Bird. There are plenty of applications for this against the meta. A lot of these marks, check marks, dashes, and X's, they're all resemblance of what hits the main deck. Some of them are better against other side deck cards, so we can side against their side cards, but let's get into it. So Draw Unlock Bird. Pure Lyrilusk and the Tri-Brigade stuff all loses to Droll and Lockbird, which is really nice. They make the first recital, or they use a bird call. They're not going to be able to do anything else, which is really good. Against PK, it's very ineffective. Sometimes it can be turn ending if they use like a reinforcements of the army, but that deck really doesn't add much to hand aside from maybe a boots off of a cloak or a fog blade off of the boots. A lot of it is just graveyard centric. In that case, a card like Ghost Bell would be better, or DD Crow once we get down to DD Crow. Against Drytron, Droll and Lockbird is just the scoop button. If they do not have a Call by the Grave or a Gamma, or they can't use their Gamma, that's just GG. They usually pass on that. They'll end up making a DPE or a Dragoon depending on the build. So Droll and Lockbird basically just shuts Drytron down. Against Shaddoll and Shaddoll Invoked, Dogmatica stuff, it's hit or miss. If you do it after they normal summon the Alistair, or you do it after the terraforming, or use the meltdown to search the Alistair, whatever, that's probably the best time to do it. Some decks still play the Gamma in the main just because of that. Some people don't even play the terraforming. So it's just hit or miss, really. I mean, even if you droll them, they'll probably still have the invocation in hand because that's just what an invoke player does, but I digress. Against Sword Soul, it's not too bad. They're not really adding anything from their deck to their hand, and they can easily put up like a Baron, the level 6 starter, so it's really dependent. So it's it's hit or miss. Going on to like Lancia now. There's a dash beside Lyrilusk because this is questionable. It depends on the build. Against pure Lyrilusk without any of the Tri-Brigade stuff, it does nothing. But against like the Tri-Brigade stuff, it is pretty good. I mean, at most you're probably looking at a Draco future, and then that's about it. Maybe a set bird call or something of that nature. So it's not too bad against that, but against pure it doesn't really do anything. Lancia against Phantom Knights, it's pretty effective, like really effective. So effective that they're even citing this themselves to counter cards like Evenly Matched or DD Crow or anything like that, so that's also really good. But yeah, most of the Phantom Knight stuff does play out of the graveyard, such as the Fog Blade, the Wings, the Cloak, the Boots. All of it has to banish itself to either summon something back, add something to hand, or set something from the field, or special summon something out of the grave. So yeah, dropping the Lancia on Phantom Knights can be the death sentence for them. Against Drytron, it's really only going to stop the Eva, and it's just not worth it. You're better off playing cards like Dark Ruler No More, Forbidden Droplets, Kaijus, anything. Don't play Lancia against it. It's just not worth it. Against Shaddoll, it's alright. It stops the Alistair line, but that's really about it. The big thing is they have a card like Shaddoll Schism, which they activate on our turn, which we can't use Lancia then. So it's not the best. If you really wanted to play a card that prevents them from banishing and turning off the Schism and the invocation completely, you could play a card like Chaos Hunter. Chaos Hunter is not a bad card to pick up. I believe it got a reprint as a common in, I think, the Egyptian God structure decks, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong on that, but it was very recent. It's like 25 cents or something like that. And then Lancia against Sword Soul. This turns off the Tenyi side of it, which the Tenyi build is probably the strongest one of the bunch. Lancia is really good, especially once they get the first body on board. Drop it. You can also play Token Collector. It's not bad, but I don't see the reason for putting 2 to 3 cards in your side deck for one matchup unless your locals is flooded with this or you're playing in a bigger event. Because Sword Soul and Tri-Brigade, Lyrilusk are 2 of the big decks. So is the Phantom Knights. I mean, all these decks right here, they're all really popular right now, so I don't believe siding the Token Collector is worth it if you're just playing at a locals, but if you're going to a bigger event, I'd put the Token Collectors in before mostly anything else on this list if you're worried about the Sword Soul matchup completely. Coming up next, we have Dark Ruler No More. Again, this one's a dash mark beside of the Lyrilusk, because against the Pure, it just shuts them off. And against the Tri-Brigade variant, they do have the Oath usually going to grave to protect their board from being Dark Ruler to Lightning Stormed, whatever. So it's hit or miss. The Dark Ruler will force out the Oath negate, which is good, and then you can follow up with a Lightning Storm. But that requires opening up 2 cards just to break their board. And on top of that, they also have a card like Apex Avian that would stop the Lightning Storm as well, or anything else like that, because it's an Omni that bounces back to hand. So it's very hit or miss on what the proper thing to put in against them would be. I don't believe Dark Ruler would be worth it against the Leerless stuff, unless they're a bad player and they don't put the Oath into the grave. Next up, we have Phantom Knights. They usually pop the Scythe during the draw phase or the standby phase, depending on how they're doing it. So the Dark Ruler really just doesn't do anything. You're just turning off whatever's left on the board, usually a Rusty, a Dagda, and maybe the Scythe after it's already resolved, so it doesn't do anything. Dark Ruler's just not worth it. They also have at least 1 to 2 Fogblades set. It's just not worth putting it against him. But a deck that Dark Ruler is really good against is actually the Drytron match, because Drytron, they really don't end on anything, any graveyard shenanigans or any spell or traps that stop it unless they're citing in the Solemn Judgments. So that is a great way to just deal with that. Then you're probably looking at maybe 1 to 2 negates from Herald in the hand, depending on what they have in hand. Usually they have the Orange Light and an extra Diviner, and that's usually pitch fodder, or they have the Eva that they need to pitch off of the Ultimateness to then search the Orange Light and the Diviner. So against Drytron, I believe Dark Ruler No More, Forbidden Droplets, things of that nature are really good against this matchup, and you probably should put those in. If you have room in your side deck, they're definitely worth it. Okay, so next you have the Shadal deck. So this could be the Invoke, the Dogmatica variants, anything like that. Dark Ruler No More is really good once you bait out the Schism, because the Schism is, they're not going to activate the Schism until you commit something to the board, and they force you to use your special summon for the turn, usually like in response to an effect that's special something. In the case of Speedroids, they'll usually flip it on the card turbo, or whenever Takatomborg uses his effect to summon one from the deck. This is where you would need to activate the Dark Ruler after it resolves, because they're not going to get any value out of the Schism by popping a monster, because we play primarily wins. In that regards, that's probably a decent choice for you. The big reason I don't like Dark Ruler No More in Speedroids is just where we have so much potential to kill the opponent on the following turn that I don't want to miss that opportunity, because if you don't seize the opportunity when it presents itself, it can bite you in the ass really, really quick. Then against the Sword Soul matchup, it's very dependent. I mean, it'll take care of the level 8, the level 10, or the Baron pretty easily, but they usually have the Blackout at least. But usually they'll have like the Vashuda in the grave that they can banish to bounce something back. So it's still good. It deals with about 2 to 3 negates, but you're still dealing with a bounce back from the Blackout, and you also have to deal with the bounce back from the Tenyi stuff as well. So just keep that in mind. It's not a bad option though. Lightning Storm, similar situation as the Dark Ruler No More. Against Pure, it just clears the board unless they learn to put things in defense position. Against the Tri-Brigade stuff, they have Oath again, and they also have Apex Avian, so it's a hit or miss. You would need to have a way to bait out the Apex first and then the Oath, or you need to bait the Oath first and then have a Chalice for the Avian. So it really just depends on what you're given in your opening hand. It's too many variables. I just don't think it's worth it. I would rather just play other cards that are just going to get them off their monsters rather than trying to just break their board, because the board is crazy good. Next up, we have Phantom Knights. Again, it's just one of those decks. Like, what are you going to hit? They've already Scythe locked you by that point. It doesn't do anything. You're going to pop maybe, the Fog Blades, and then they're going to have resources to bring back for the next turn. It's just not worth it. Against them, Evenly Matched is probably one of your better choices, but they play Lancia. And by the time you even get a chance to evenly match them, it just doesn't even matter, because you're already Scythe locked. Their graveyard is already set up. They probably still have everything that they need in there. It's just not a good time. Like, you really need to stop them as they're going. Nib is probably your better option here. That's why we're maining it. But yeah, that's my thought process on that. Next up, we have Drytron. Drytron's kind of just don't put it in there. No. You have better cards you can put in. You can put in the Crow. You can put in the Droll and Lockbird. Imperial Order hurts them too. Gamma's just good because it gets them off of monsters. It destroys things. Yeah, just don't play Lightning Storm against Drytron. It just does not work. Next up, we have the Shadal Invoked variants. This one, is very... it's not worth it, honestly. You could hit the Schism if you really want to. You can hit the Schism and the Punishment if you're playing against the Dogmatica stuff, but they'll just chain it, and then they'll summon out their Winda. Also, you can't call monsters against it because they usually have a Mechaba. I mean, Mechaba is going to be on the field anyway, so Mechaba will just negate this, or the Winda can't be destroyed by card effects, so there's just no point. Again, evenly matched would work really well here. They're just going to keep the Winda most likely after you baited out the Mechaba negate. But yeah, you'd be better off playing cards like Forbidden Chalice. The Dark Ruler would be better in this instance. Forbidden Droplets, anything just to negate the Winda and the Mechaba or anything like that. Dark Ruler is probably your better choice on this matchup. For the Sword Soul matchup, Lightning Storm can be hit or miss. I mean, it's similar situation as before. You're going to still have to deal with the Blackout most likely, and probably the Vashuna, or the one that banishes itself to bounce a card. You're still going to have to deal with that most likely. So it's really good. It's either going to bait out a negate, or it's going to force out something else that they wanted to do and save for later. So yeah, it's not a bad option. If you have it, you can try it out. I've never really decided in against them. In theory, it does seem like it'd be decent. Getting into Gozen Match. Gozen Match against Pure does nothing. It keeps them off of Draco Future, but I mean, that's it. But against the Tri-Brigade variants, it does keep them off of most of the stuff. Like, what are they going to summon off of the Nerval? They're going to summon a Samorg. That's about it. And yeah, I mean, what's the point? So, I mean, they'd be playing into your established board already, so you probably have at least a Baron, Crystal Wing, a duplicate of some kind, plus another hand trap, and maybe this Floodgate. There's not much they can really do. It does stop them, though. It does secure the end of their turn, basically. And if you can commit little resources to your first board, and then you still have the Gozen match set, you can always flip the Gozen, either on their turn or on our turn, and they can't actually Nibiru us, which is phenomenal. So just keep that in mind. So, I mean, you could probably tailor your whole playstyle around it and stay under 4 summons, commit as little to the board as possible, and just rely on the Gozen for protection from Nib until you can establish some type of negate or anything like that. Next up, against Drytron, it does kind of hinder them a little bit. It keeps them off of the Verte and the DPE or the Dragoon stuff, so it's not bad in that regard, but everything's primarily light and fairies, so I mean, Gozen Rivalry just doesn't do anything. It's not worth it, I feel like. So next up we have Shaddoll Invoked. You flip this up whenever they normal summon Alistair, and then they just kind of can't do anything because they don't have a way to get another name into the graveyard. They can't even go Invocation, banish one of our wind monsters, and the Alistair to make the Ragin. So it just kind of turns them off if you hit them at the right point. It's not terrible. It does require them to be able to play around it or play through it. They could still go for the Winda. They can go for App Cologne if they have the stuff in hand. But most Shaddoll lists don't play more than just the stuff in the extra deck, just depending on the build. We do have a local player at my game store who he has a very heavy Shaddoll lineup. So in that regards, I don't think Gozen would be the best choice against him because he'll just play around it and then make App Cologne, negate the Gozen match, and then just continue on doing what he wants to do. So yeah, I mean, that's an option. Against the Sword Soul matchup, a lot of them are different attributes. You got Moye being a water, you have the level 6 being a fire, you have the Taya being a wind. All of the Tenyis are different attributes. So I think Gozen would honestly be a really good choice against this. I'm not too sure what the tokens are. I'd have to read. I think their attribute is determined by who summons them, but I could be wrong on that. I'll have to look and see. Next up, we have Imperial Order. Imperial Order against birds really just stops any of their side deck stuff that they're using to stop us. I mean, you can hit the Bird Call or the Call by the Grave or anything like that, but just Imperial Order just doesn't do hardly anything against the bird deck, so it's not even worth siding in against them. You have better options to actually stop their plays than just to kind of make it harder for them to play. Same with the Tri-Brigade variant. I mean, they really don't use spell cards aside from the Bird Call, maybe 1 for 1, but that's about it. So yeah, it's just not worth it. Against the Phantom Knight matchup, this is hit or miss. You can stop the DPE if they have the Destiny Fusion in hand already. So that is an option. You can stop the reinforcements of the army, the emergency teleports, anything like that. But they do have an easy way to just get rid of it with the break sword, or if they can get into the Rusty Bardiche, they can just summon a break sword or a Dark Xyz to a zone he points to and pop it. So mostly the Imperial Order in most cases is going to be used as a defensive mechanism against Dark Ruler No More, Lightning Storm, Cosmic Cyclones, spell cards that just wipe us out and take care of our board. So it's more of a defensive card in this matchup than anything. Same with the bird, I guess, but if we're just looking at pure engine, it just doesn't do much against Phantom Knights. Against Drytron, it can be the blowout. They do have to activate the ritual spell, and if they can't do that, I mean, good luck. So against Drytron, it does hinder them quite a lot. They do have to activate their ritual spell to usually play and recycle the Ben 10 a lot. You also have like the Nova and everything else like that, the ones that special summon from deck, search and add one to hand, cyber emergency, all that stuff. That does hinder that a lot. Again, and again, it is also a defensive card against cards like Lightning Storm, Dark Ruler No More, Forbidden Droplets, if they don't discard a trap card. So it does have its utility here. Again, it's a sack you one of. If you've got room, if you've got 14 cards in your side deck and you need a 15th, I think Imperial Order is still worth playing until this card gets banned, because please Konami, just ban it already. Alright, so next up we have Shaddoll Invoked. I mean, yeah, it's a fusion-based deck that primarily uses, you guessed it, spell cards to fusion summon. So this does put a lot of work, especially if they activate the Meltdown, they activate Invocation, they activate Shaddoll Fusion, basically anything. Nadir Servant, anything of that nature, you flip the Imperial Order, and they're kind of just stuck. They're going to have a way to out this. So they're usually going to be dropping like a Lightning Storm, a Cosmic Cyclone. This is where you just flip the Imperial Order. Watch out games 2 and 3, because a lot of people are citing the Cosmic Cyclone just because it takes care of the side deck stuff. Imperial Order against Shaddoll can be the death sentence, just like how Droll and Lockbird can be the death sentence for Drytron and Leer Lust. Next up is the Sword Soul matchup. Sword Soul, it is alright. I mean, you have a lot of the 10U spells. You have their own spells that search themselves. It keeps them off of it. It can also stop the Forbidden Chalices. It can keep them off of Lightning Storm itself. It's a defensive card again. So it is a good option if you are afraid of their own power spells and power cards in the side deck. But yeah, overall, it's kind of mediocre against their actual engine because they don't need a lot of the stuff to play. It's just a lot of the consistency cards are spell cards for them, so it does hinder them quite a bit engine-wise. Alright, so next up we have DD Crow. DD Crow is kind of good against Leer Lusk in some regards. You can, once you see them normal summon or special summon the Nurgle or Kit or whatever, you can DD Crow one of the materials out of the graveyard to keep them off of certain links. Against the pure variants, you have the Warbler that targets one in the graveyard or special summons one from hand. You have the Barrel that targets one in the graveyard to special summon it. You can DD Crow it and make it just fizzle. So DD Crow against them is not the worst, you know. It's generic, and it can cover most of these other decks as well because they all have graveyard effects. And yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be too upset about having the DD Crow against them just because it does hinder their plays quite a bit. You can knock the Warbler out of their graveyard. You can knock the one target for the Sapphire that's going to be added back to an Xyz. I mean, there's plenty of options with that against the Leer Lust matchup, so it's not too bad. Alright, against the Phantom Knight matchup, you can hit basically everything. This just says no. So let's say they have like a Torn Scales and a Cloak engraved. They banish the Cloak to search for boots, and you activate DD Crow, you snipe out the Torn Scales, therefore it doesn't special summon itself back out of the grave because Phantom Knight activated its effect. That can be really good. You can also snipe out the DPE. Big thing for DD Crow right now is being able to snipe out the DPE after it's gone to the graveyard. That way that they're forced to special summon one of the other pieces for its fusion, usually the Dasher or the Celestial. Some people play the Plasma for some reason, but I get it. Yeah, DD Crow is really good against Phantom Knights. Alright, moving on to the Drytron matchup. I mean, I think everyone knows where this one's going. Hit the Ben 10. Just hit the Ben 10. I believe you can also hit some of their other targets. Like, you can hit the Alpha Thuban or the Gamma, or whatever they're trying to do to summon them back from graveyard by attributing another one or whatever. You have utility there as well, but the big thing is hit the Ben 10, hit the DPE if they're on the DPE. It's just really good. Like, that's the bottom line. Crow is so good right now. But yeah, your main targets for Drytron are obviously the Ben 10 and the DPE, and also if you have 2 in hand, you can possibly use it for one of the other names that are trying to summon themselves back. Next up we have Shadal and its variants. DD Crow is kind of lackluster. It can snipe a piece out of the graveyard for the Schism. So you could hit the App Cologne, that way that they can't go into the window on your turn. You can snipe the Alistair, which will then require them to either use the invocation to fuse from hand, or they're going to have to find a way to discard the invocation to then add back the Alistair to hand by using the invocation's effect in grave. Overall, it's a little bit lackluster against Shadal Invoked, but it can still have its utility. Crow's really good. So next up we have Sword Soul. DD Crow's not the most amazing, but it's still really good here. If they're playing the DPE variant, obviously hit the DPE, but if they're playing like the Tenyi Sword Soul stuff, you can always hit the names out of the grave. A lot of the Tenyi stuff does have to banish itself for cost to do stuff, so it just gets rid of those, especially the Vishuna. And yeah, they also have the Ashuna, I think that's what it's called. It's the light one that whenever it's banished, you can search another worm monster from the deck. So that's a really good hit. Overall, DD Crow covers a lot of ground. I think DD Crow is probably one of the better cards in the format. Alright, so next up we have Gamma and his little pal known as Driver, because Driver is always glued to your hand whenever you side this in or main it. I am sorry, but that is the truth. It's just a monster negate and destroy from the hand. I mean, it's so good whenever you can actually utilize it. If you know you're going second, it's a great option. It takes care of cards like Dimension Shifter if you're playing against the Flow Underease stuff. Just a basic monster negation, just everything. Any play starter, any important pieces, it's Gamma. It covers literally everything in the meta right now. And it can also be a defensive card to protect yourself on your turn. Very good. That's really all I have to say about that, because I can't really pinpoint any certain cards in each matchup that you really want to hit. I mean, Leerlusk, you want to hit probably the Nervals or any of the Tri-Brigade names. You can hit the Recital. You can hit pretty much anything, and it's good. Gamma and Droll are probably 2 of your best cards against them, honestly. Against Phantom Knights, Gamma's really good against certain monsters. You can get the Torn Scale off field, you can get the Tour Guide off the field, you can get the Cherubini off the field if they don't have something to protect it, you can get the Rusty off the field, you can... Yeah, you can just do so much with it. It's kind of nuts. Against Drytron, it gets them off the certain names. It can be a hindrance to their plays. I mean, obviously you want to play the Drolls first. Gamma's not a bad option. It'll just give you an extra interruption. You can save it for the Verte that's going to be sending the Destiny Fusion to make the DPE or the Dragoon. You can hit that, and it's not a bad option there. Shadals, you really don't have many great specific targets. I mean, you can hit the Alistair, but they're good Invoke players, so they're going to have the invocation anyway. You can hit the Ecclesia whenever she tries to add one from deck. That's not a bad option. You can stop the App Cologne from sending the Schism to the graveyard, and then everything else like that. I mean, there's plenty of options for it, and it's just not a bad option to throw in with something else, like the Dark Rulers or anything like that. And then against Sword Soul, it does just get them off the name. So against Sword Soul, it does get them off names. So they either summon their Ecclesia or their Moye, and you just activate Gamma, get it off the field, and it requires them to have the additional body that they can throw on board to make some type of play. So it can be a hindrance for them if you're going second, and it can also, yeah, just be a defensive card overall for going first. Arguably, if you're playing a list of this deck that has the Win the Wind channelers, the Small World, Scratch, anything that's going to be searching you a Terratop or anything like that, Gamma is probably going to be one of your best friends, just because that -1 is not going to be stopped by a Droll and Lockbird. That -1's not going to be stopped by a Ash Blossom, and then it calls you to pass turn. But yeah, while you're building your deck, keep that in mind. Gamma is probably one of your best friends if you're playing those -1 cards in your Speedroid deck. But moving on to the next one, we have Solemn Judgment. Solemn Judgment's just Solemn Judgment. It's so good. It stops summons, it stops spells, it stops traps, all at speed spell 4. Your opponent can't respond to it unless they have another counter trap, and it's mostly going to be used as a defensive measure against cards like Dark Ruler No More, Lightning Storm, and things of that nature. So generally speaking, for everything that's in the meta right now, you can hit the more important normal summons, or the summons in general. You can hit the important spells. Overall, Solemn Judgment's just a great option in the side deck, especially when you know when you're going first, just because it's a defensive card, and it can also be an offensive card where it can stop them dead in their tracks if they have a certain line of play that needs to go through for them to play. Alright, and lastly, we have Cosmic Cyclone. Cosmic Cyclone against the pure engine of Leerlusk and the Tri-Brigade stuff just doesn't do anything. What are you going to do? Are you going to banish their bird call? No, it's just not worth it. The Tri-Brigade stuff doesn't really rely on anything like that. They'll probably have like a like the tanky. I mean, are you really worried about them having like a plus 100 to their monsters? I mean, not really, no. So it's alright. But going second, I mean, you have to think about what they could potentially have in their side deck. You got cards like Imperial Order, you have Goes in Match, you have everything like that. Just stuff that's going to stop our power spells that are going to try to stop them. So the same way that Dark Ruler No More is good against them, Dark Ruler No More is really good against us, and vice versa. So keep that in mind, especially with cards like Imperial Order. We have cards like Speed Recovery and Speedroid Wheel that are power cards, like within our own engine, and Imperial Order really stops that. So I mean, Cosmic Cyclone in that regards is really good. So against Phantom Knights, the big thing that we're going to be hitting with Cosmic Cyclone is going to be the Scythe. You can also hit the Fog Blades, you can hit the Imperial Order if they have that out, but usually it's going to be the Scythe. That way the DPE can't send it to graveyard, that way it gets banished, that way it never hits the field, and we can actually play the game. So that is really good in that regards. Against Drytron, they just don't play spells that stay on the board. I mean, you can banish the Ritual spell, which kind of hurts them because they only play the one. But overall, it's just not worth it. You're better off playing stronger cards such as the DD Crow, Droll Lockbird, Imperial Order. Yeah, it's just not even worth playing the Cosmic against them, in all honesty. Against the Shaddoll stuff, you can hit the Schism with this. You can force out the Schism. You can hit back row. You can force out certain interactions. Overall, it's really good. If they're on the Dogmatica stuff, then you can hit the Punishment with it, which is pretty good. Just gets rid of one of their interruptions for the rest of the turn. But yeah, overall, it's not a bad hit. Yeah, you can also banish the Invocation if you have the Cosmic set and they're going second. So that's always an option. Next up, we have Sword Soul. The big thing with Sword Soul is you can hit the Blackout, which kind of hurts. It just takes care of an interruption for you. But usually they'll have like a Baron or some type of negate for that. So it's a good way to bait that out. Or if you've already baited out the Baron negate, you can get rid of the Blackout pretty easily. Alrighty guys, and I think that wraps it up. I know the video is long as can be. It's about an hour and 15 minutes or something like that. But if you made it to the end, I appreciate you so much for watching it. I hope you learned something. I hope you took something from this at least, to at least understand the deck a little bit better and just the game in general. But yeah, if you like the content, leave me a like, comment, and subscribe down below. Ding that little notification bell. Let me know what you think, what you want to see in the future. But guys, until next time, peace out. Take it easy.